What it is, my 10 LPs in Greece here, and today we're talking about the basics of trade chat. Now, it never ceases to amaze me when I run into new players that just don't use trade chat, either because it's daunting seeing all this information tick by so quickly in trade chat, or maybe there's a lack of understanding on how to price their items or how to go about using trade chat. So that's going to be the focal point of the video today, is to get you more comfortable and acclimated, get you out there using trade chat, and start making the plat you want to buy the items that you're looking for. Now, the biggest question I always seem to get the most is, how do you know what to charge for your items? Well, there are two ways to go about this. The first is just spending time in trade chat. As you spend time in trade chat, you're going to see other players listing items for sale. And at the same time, you can take their price and apply it to your items if you have similar items. So, if you take somebody wanting to buy Ash Prime for 80 plat, if you have an Ash Prime set, that gives you the opportunity to ask the same price or slightly under. Now, my personal opinion, 80 plat's way too low for an Ash Prime set. Ash has been revolted, and so I wouldn't be selling an Ash Prime set right now anyway. And if I did, it would damn sure be more than 80 plat. But again, that's going to come with time in the game. So that's the first way to go about figuring out how to value your items. The second way is to use external sources. And there are great websites out there, whether we're talking Warframe Market, whether we're talking Simlar, and there's more than just that. These are all fantastic tools. You can bookmark them on your smart devices, and anytime you have a question about the value of something, grab your mobile device, pull up the bookmark, and look to see what the values are. So using both of these is ideal. Even I use these external websites. I do all the time. In fact, the other day I was looking to see what Narrow Barrel was actually going for, and ended up using Warframe Market to see what the going rate was for it. Now, you don't have to sign up for anything. You don't have to pay anything. These are 100% free to use. In the case of Warframe Market, you can even list your items for sale on the website, but you will have to sign up for an account, I believe, for that. But suffice it to say, when we talk about the value of items, there seems to be kind of a misconception amongst new players that if somebody's asking more than 5 or 10 plat, then surely they must be greedy, stingy, or selfish. And so I really want to dispel this myth pretty quickly and pretty early on. Now, when we talk about the value of prime parts, this is really easy to illustrate values. When we talk about prime parts in relics, and by the way, what I'm doing at this point is I'm calling up all of my relics that have Zooj Prime parts, and I'm just using the Zooj Prime as a generic example. But when you look at the Zooj Prime grip, for example, or the string, how is it that these have virtually no value? But then when you look at an item such as the Zooj Prime barrel, it does have value. Well, the reason for this is because the Zooj Prime grip and string are bronze drops and the barrel is gold drop. Now, this is going to be the obvious response, but what do these colors mean? We throw them around. We tend to throw them around pretty haphazardly. Well, ultimately, it comes down to the amount of time you're going to need to invest, typically, to earn said item. So, as I said, in this example, we have the Zooj Prime grip and string. And chances are you're going to run 1 or 2 missions, 1 or 2 relics, and more than likely, without even trying, you'll probably get the Zooj Prime grip and string. Just that easy. Furthermore, you don't have to worry about refining these relics up with reactant. But in the case of the Zooj Prime barrel, you're going to be running a lot of missions and a lot of relics, to the extent that you may end up running out of relics and have to go farm more relics just so you can farm those new relics for the gold part. Moreover, you're probably going to refine these relics up with reactant, and you may run out of reactant and have to go farm more reactant so you can refine the new relics you just farmed so you can open those, all in an attempt to get the gold drop. The point is, once you start going from bronze to silver and gold, the amount of time you're going to have to invest to earn those items goes up exponentially. So when we look at these items, there's a reason why they have the values like they do. And anybody that tries to offer you, say, 5 or 10 plat for a gold prime drop, let me put it to you this way. If you've ever farmed any gold part in Warframe, you know what a grind it is. You know how many relics you have to go through. You know how much reactants you have to go through. You know how many missions you have to run. 5 or 10 plat does not equal that amount of time investment. It just doesn't. So that's why certain things have a value. It's not about anybody being selfish or greedy or stingy. It has to do with these items have a value for a very specific reason. And this is really easy to illustrate when we talk about mods. Now, believe it or not, mods seems to be kind of the biggest confusion point for a lot of new players trying to price their collection. Now, when we look at something like Vengeful Revenant, Vengeful Revenant is a sword stance mod, and it has one of the lowest drop rates in the game, at 0.5%. You don't even get 1% drop rate. You literally 0.5%. And if you would care to take a guess how many Vengeful Revenants I have personally had drop. Now, I checked my account the other day on Warframe's website, and I'm at 6 years and over 3,000 hours. So how many Vengeful Revenants do you think I've had drop? The answer is 2. The one I keep for my personal collection and 1 extra. That's it. The point that I'm making here is it's very plausible that somebody is going to invest hundreds of hours to get a Vengeful Revenant. Hundreds of hours. Not 10, not 20, not 80, not 99. Hundreds of hours to get an extra Vengeful Revenant. Does it make sense for them to sell that mod for 5 or 10 plat at that point? Of course not. They don't equate. Hundreds of hours is not acceptable for 5 or 10 plat. It's just not. That's why Vengeful Revenant normally sells in the 100 plat range. Again, there's a reason why these items have values. Now, when we look at something like Growing Power is an aura mod that is a pretty good little aura mod. And basically, if you proc status with your weapons, you're going to proc Growing Power, which gives you an additional 25% power strength. And if your weapons happen to be, very much into the heavy status effect range, you're pretty much going to be having that 25% power strength increase indefinitely in that mission. So really good little aura mod. Now, this aura mod particularly goes for about 50 plat in that neighborhood. Now, I actually have a funny story about Growing Power. This was a couple weeks ago. But the point that I'm making here is that 50 plat is not a amount that someone just decided to pull out of their butt because they're trying to be stingy or greedy. It's simply not. There's a reason why the value on it is in that 50 plat range. Now, I had a player message me when I was listing my last extra Growing Power, max rank, and I said 50 plat or best offer. So I was willing to negotiate, and we'll get into the trade chat lingo here in a moment. But I was willing to negotiate from 50 plat. So the guy or gal could have offered me 40 plat, 45 plat, and I would have been more than willing to work with them. But instead, this player messages me and says 10 plat. Now, my natural response at that point was NTY. No, thank you. I'm not interested in your 10 plat for a Growing Power. The player then remarks that I'm selfish and I'm greedy and I'm stingy, and that's why I won't take their 10 plat. So the question becomes this. Is it true that I'm being selfish or greedy because I don't take 10 plat for this? Or is this other player out of touch with reality? Now, the best way to answer that question is to explain to you what I have to typically go through to get a Growing Power. Now, whenever you want to earn a Growing Power, what you're going to have to do is you're going to have to run the Silver Grove quest. Well, this is going to be particularly problematic for you if you don't like running quests. Now, the reason you want to run the Silver Grove quest ultimately is because you're wanting to get access to the Apothic blueprints. Now, the Apothic blueprints in your foundry are just very similar to all the blueprints you find there. There's a credit cost, which is 500 for the Apothics. There's a time requirement to build, which is 1 minute for these Apothics. And there's a resource cost, which is 2 Morphics in this case. But the one unique thing about the Apothics is that they require plants. Now, you do well to ask, well, how do you pick up plants in Warframe, and where do you pick them up at? What location? All right, well, let's answer the first question first. How you get plants in Warframe is you scan them. Quite simply. And in the case of Nightball Apothic, for example, you need 12 scans of Sunlight Thresh Cone. Now you can only scan one plant one time, and then you must move on to a different plant and scan it one time, and then move to a different plant and scan it at one time. So you can only scan a plant one time. So in the case of Sunlight Thresh Cone, you're going to need 12 different Sunlight Thresh Cone plants you're going to have to scan. That's just to build one Nightball Apothic. Now, to answer the question of where, you're going to have to run missions all over the star chart. As an example, Lunar Pitcher can only be found on Lua. Frostleap can only be found on Corpus ice planets. You've got some going to only be found on Earth during the day, for example, Sunlight Thresh Cone and Sunlight Jade Leaf. Likewise, you're going to only find plants like Moonlight Dragon Lily and Moonlight Jade Leaf on the same Earth missions, but in the evening. Then you've got plants like Dusklight Sarracenia, you've got Rux Claw, Vestian Moss. These types of items you're going to find on Grineer planets like Ceres, Mars, and the like. The point that I'm making is you're going to be going running missions all over the damn star charts, doing nothing but scanning these plants, and you're not going to be getting much of anything from running these missions. Sure, you'll get a little sprinkle of credits or a little dab of resources, but it's not going to be much in the way of a very serious amount. It's going to be a tiny little sprinkling. That's it. So the point, again, is that you're not getting really anything for running these missions, but you're running missions like an idiot all over the star chart, scanning plants. That's it. And even at this point, you're not doing anything to get growing power, or at least the chance to get growing power yet. This is just preparing to get the chance to get growing power later. Now, it takes me on average, sometimes more, sometimes less, but it takes me on average about 30 Silver Grove runs before I finally see one growing power. Now, in the case of Sunlight Thresh Cone, you're needing 12 per apothic, 30 runs on average. That means you're going to need 360 scans of just Sunlight Thresh Cone. Nothing else. And we're not even talking about Dusklight Sarracenia or Moonlight Dragon Lily or any of these other plants. We're just talking about strictly Sunlight Thresh Cone by itself. 360 scans. Just to emphasize how much grinding and running around you're going to have to do. Now, once you get those plants and you build your apothics, you're going to slot them into your gear wheel in the arsenal. And now you can try and run the Silver Grove. You're going to run Earth missions. And what you're going to be looking for is the Silver Grove Cave. When you get close, the Lotus will tell you that you're close to the Silver Grove. But keep in mind, the Silver Grove is not a guaranteed spawn, but it does spawn fairly regularly, so that shouldn't be a problem. So once you go into the Silver Grove Cave, you are going to go to the top of the waterfall, and you will sprinkle your apothic on the little stone altar on top of the waterfall. And in so doing, a specter will spawn. You will then take out the specter, and fingers and toes crossed, you get a growing power. But keep in mind, growing power only has a 6% drop rate, which means if you don't get growing power, everything I just mentioned, you're going to have to do it over and over and over again. Now, is it wise for me to sell a growing power for 5 to 10 plat? Obviously not. There's a reason, again, there's a reason why the value on it is in that neighborhood of 50 plat. It doesn't have anything to do with somebody being stingy or selfish or greedy. It has to do with the amount of time you invest to earn said item. Now, ribbon mods are a different case altogether. Ribbon mods, yeah. Excuse me. Ribbon mods have been getting out of control. I see people asking insane amounts of plat for ribbon mods. That's a topic for another day. And so I'm not even going to kind of really broach that topic for the time being. But when we're talking about mods and regular mods, and we're talking about primes and things of this sort, there's a reason why items have a value. Funny story though, the player that messaged me and asked me told me that they would give me only 10 plat for a max rank growing power, and I was selfish or stingy. I can't remember the word they use now because I didn't accept their offer. Funny bit is this. I decided to teach this player a lesson. So I told them I will work with them. If they run the Silver Grove 10 times, and they don't get growing power, I will sell them a growing power for 10 plat. Now keep in mind, I actually have to run it on average 30 times. So I'm literally asking this player to run the Silver Grove a fraction of the amount that I normally have to for growing power. But this was to prove a point. This was to teach a lesson to this player. After they ran it 10 times and after they ran around like an idiot all over the star chart scanning plants, at that point, the realization should smack them in the face and make them go, geez, this is ridiculous. And they would start having a little bit more respect for the prices rather than just, "Boo, a blanket, you're greedy." So that was the lesson I was trying to teach. But like I said, the player didn't even want to accept it. They refused to run it even 10 times. Didn't want to do it. But yet they have the audacity to offer me 10 plat for my max rank growing power. But they didn't even want to run it. They didn't even want to run it 10 times. But I have to run it 30 times to get a growing power. And this doesn't count all the running around I have to do to scan the plants either. So bear that in mind. Again, so the lesson, the moral of the story here is that when we talk about the values on certain things, those values are like that for a reason. If everything in the game was a friggin' ammo case or an ammo drum, nothing would have value. If you even thought about running a mission and, oh, look, ammo case or ammo drum, nothing would have value. But not everything in game is an ammo case or ammo drum. Yeah, everybody and their dog has, 80,000 ammo case and ammo drums in their inventory. But the same can't be said for Vengeful Revenant. The same can't be said for Growing Power or many, many, many other mods. Okay, so the big question here now is you figured out how to price your items, hopefully, at this point. You figured out why certain things have certain values. And the really important point that I want to make now is that there are trends in Warframe. There are trends everywhere in life, just like there are in Warframe. But the difference is in Warframe, the trend is similar, but we're talking plat versus real world money. Now, the human species, we're a flawed creature. We are. We tend to be very petty. And at times, we want the latest and greatest, and we're willing to pay whatever we have to get it. The same thing happens in Warframe. When a brand new weapon or a brand new prime releases into the game for the first time, it is at its highest value the first few days it comes into the game. That's the highest value of it. Look at the Shidu, for example, the weapon that came in with Railjack. You literally could sell an entire Shidu set for several hundred plat for the first few days. Now, you can pick up a set for, just a few plat. It's not that expensive at all now. That trend has always been here in Warframe, and it will always be here. As long as human beings are playing Warframe, it will always be here. Because we're petty. Tom Petty. All joking aside, though, take advantage of that trend. And you may be wondering, well, how do I take advantage of that trend? All right, so here's an example. Chances are very high that we're going to be getting Titania as the next prime. And once we get the notification that there's an update for Warframe, you need to be downloading that update ASAP, getting it installed, and getting in game and running the relics like mad. Drop everything else that you're doing. Drop absolutely everything else that you're doing. And your focus is now on getting relics for Titania Prime. And then opening those relics and trying to get a Titanium Prime set. At this point, you may be tempted to keep that Titania Prime set. Don't. The simple fact of the matter is this. You have months and months and months and months to get another Titania Prime set. Months. But you only have a few days to get several hundred plat for Titania Prime. So the question is, which do you choose? The few days to get several hundred plat, or several months to get Titania Prime? Obviously, you want to take the plat. That's what you want to do. You're going to take the plat. Give up that Titania Prime set, get that several hundred plat, and go out and farm some more. See if you can get another set. Each day that new weapon or new prime is in the game, each day the value drops. More and more and more and more and more. After about a week or so, the value is bottomed out and it's not worth jack smack. Really, ultimately it's not. So you only have those few days to farm those brand new primes or weapons and make that plat. The other trend has to do with vaulted primes. Now, each day that a prime is vaulted, the price goes up. It increases. Up and up and up. And to give you an example, Rhino Prime, just a couple years ago, it had been vaulted for a good long while. They were selling for 600 plat a set. Now, since the great PS4 trade chat crash, everything has dropped in value. So do I think that Rhino Prime sets will get up to 600 plat again? Not unless he's vaulted for a very, very long time. But I do foresee him getting up to 300 to 400 plat pretty easily. Will it go beyond that? We'll just have to wait and see. But the reason I'm talking about these values and we're talking about vaulted primes is because this is another trend that you can take advantage of. Now understand this is going to be a long-term plan until you accrue enough vaulted prime sets. Now I'm lucky enough that every time a prime unbolts, I grind the living snot out of it. I drop everything else that I'm doing and I focus on just grinding those vaulted primes. Or unbolted primes, I should say. I grind the living snot out of them. And the goal is to get as many sets as I possibly can, and then I just wait. Now, as I said, this is a long-term plan, because if you haven't been doing this already, this is not going to be something you're going to be able to make a significant amount of plat off until they have been revaulted for several months. So in this case, we have Oberon Prime and Necros Prime that have been unbolted. You should be farming the living snot out of these sets. Now, Necros Prime had got up to like 200 plat for a set prior to this unbolting. So now his sets have dropped out. Same thing goes for Oberon Prime. They have dropped in value as well. But the point being, if you rack up a whole bunch of sets and just sit on them. Now, for me, I'm sitting on sets of Frost Prime, Ember Prime, Loki Prime, Necros Prime, Rhino Prime, and on and on and on. I'm sitting on all these different prime sets. And that's why it's this long-term goal that has turned into a short-term goal, because I now am in a position in which I can actually have some prime sets to sell no matter when. At any point, I'll have prime sets to sell. So that's how, if you really start grinding these unboltings and really rack up set after set after set, then you'll start accruing enough bolted prime sets in your inventory that at some point something is going to be worth 300 to 400 plat at any given time, and you will have the prime sets sitting around to sell it. So that's how it goes from a long-term goal when you have very few vaulted prime sets to a short-term goal when you have very many vaulted prime sets sitting in your inventory at one time. Same thing goes for the prime weapons or the prime sentinels as well, or even the prime arcwing stuff. Hopefully those will get up in value at some point. Right now there's not that many prime stuff for the arcwings, but who knows, maybe it will at some point. So those are the trends. Now, a few things I would like to point out to you is that if you're a little leery about getting into trade chat, listen. Trade chat is a 100% open market, meaning you can ask whatever the hell you want for whatever the hell you have. I could literally ask 1,000 plat for ammo case or ammo drum right now. And you know who can stop me? Nobody. You know who can tell me I can't? Nobody. The point that I'm making is that you can ask whatever you want for whatever you have. So it's okay. It's not that big of a deal. It's not as if the world's going to come to an end if you ask too much for something. In fact, it's better to ask too much for something than it is too little. Because you can't go back on that and like unask that amount, right? Or increase the amount. You don't want to do that. But get into trade chat, start listing those items that you want to sell, and be patient. Understand, it takes time. I cannot stress this enough. There are times when in a day I will make 20 sales. And then there are times in a day, in a week, I can't make one sale. So there are times, it's an ebb and flow. There are times when you're going to make sales, and there are times when you're not going to make sales. You have to be patient. And that's the other thing. Don't lower the value. If you list something in trade chat and you don't get any interest, don't immediately say, well, I got to lower the value. No, you don't. Understand, people in trade chat are doing 20 different things at once. They're talking to other members in trade chat. They could be talking to clan members. They could be in the middle of a trade. They could be doing any number of things, and they just missed your ad. So don't go lowering your value. Stick with your value, all right? And if you have any doubt, then just put negotiable on it, right? And again, we'll talk about the trade chat jargon here in a moment. But be patient. And the other thing is, don't let some asshat deter you. Now, everywhere you go in life, it's not just in trade chat, it's not just in video games. Everywhere you go in life, you're going to encounter douchebags. Happens everywhere. From time to time, you will encounter douchebags in trade chat. In fact, when I was making this video, I actually did encounter a douchebag. And I just literally just turned it into a joke on them, and the conversation was over. Literally that quick. But don't let it leak into any of your other interactions with other people, because you're going to find that the majority of the people in trade chat are just like you and me. They're really freaking cool people, and I have made a bunch of friends just by making sales or buying stuff in trade chat. Just that simple. It's really that simple. Most people you're going to find, great people. Yeah, you're going to get the occasional douchebag. The other thing, don't be afraid to frickin' negotiate. Negotiating is part of trade chat. If you run into some asshat who says, I will not negotiate, don't waste your time with them. They are an idiot and an asshat, okay? You can always negotiate. But the difference here is don't knock their doggone head off. So let's see here. If I can get over to trade chat, let's see. I'm looking for somebody listing something for sale. Okay, so here's somebody selling an Oberon Prime set, right? They're asking 60 plat. It's A-okay to negotiate. You know, send them a message, hey, would you take 45 plat? That's okay. But don't knock their head off by saying, oh, you want 60 plat, will you take 20? It's just disrespectful. It's rude. Don't knock their doggone head off. And that's the other thing. If you yourself also have an Oberon Prime set, you see this person selling it for 60 plat, undercut it a little bit, like 5 plat, right? You sell your Oberon Prime set for 55 plat. But again, don't knock their head off. Don't come in there and be like, I want to sell Oberon Prime set 30 plat. You don't have to knock their head off, right? You need to at least try and keep the values similar. So keep that in mind as well. Let's see here. So those are some of the best things I can really tell you about trade chat. We'll get into a little bit more here as we start the lingo portion, the what various things mean in trade chat. Okay, so this is kind of obvious, but WTS means want to sell. So as an example, I would put WTS Chroma Prime set. I have a Chroma Prime set I want to sell. My price is 80 plat. WTB means I want to buy. So in this case, let's say I wanted to buy a Titania Prime set. I want to buy WTB, a Titania Prime set. WTT means I want to trade. So for example, if I have a Chroma Prime set and I'm not able to sell it for any decent amount of plat, maybe I put it out there for trade. Want to trade Chroma Prime set. Let me see what kind of offers I get for trades. WTTF means I want to trade for. So using the growing power example, let's say I wanted to get a growing power, but I didn't want to buy it with plat. So I listed I want to trade for growing power. OBO means or best offer. It's the same thing as negotiable. Some people also put offers with a question mark. For example, they may put want to sell Chroma Prime 85 plat OBO or best offer. They may put negotiable instead of OBO, or they may put offers question mark instead. PC is something you don't see very often in trade chat anymore, but basically it doesn't mean personal computer. It actually means price check. So if for whatever reason you were in a pinch and you wanted to find out what everybody else in trade chat was asking for a Chroma Prime set, you could put PC Chroma Prime, and then people would message you and you could say, oh, okay, we're getting this much for a Chroma Prime set. So that's what PC means, price check. TY. TY just means thank you. Anytime I complete a sale or I buy something, I always send the other person a TY, a thank you. You may get the response of a YW, which means you're welcome. If I get a really bad offer, for example, the growing power when the person offered me 10 plat, put NTY. No thank you. A G roll, you may see this in regards to a ribbon mod. This stands for God roll. And what a God roll is that it's allegedly the absolute best possible stats you can get on a ribbon mod for that specific weapon. I personally don't believe in a God roll because everybody's definition of a God roll as far as stats go is different. If you look at something like the Telos Bolto, for example, I personally, for me, a God roll, what I wanted was crit and status chance. Somebody else may just want status chance. Somebody else may just want crit chance. Somebody else may just want damage and multi-shot, and so on and so forth. All of these things are going to have an impact on whether or not somebody considers it a God roll or not. PM offer, PMO, that's what PM offer stands for, private message offer. Don't ever use this. It is a waste of time. So typically you'll see something like want to sell Chroma Prime, PMO, private message offer. Don't waste your time. Don't ever put PMO. It is a complete and total utter waste of your time. My 6 years in game, you want to know how many people I have messaged total that put PMO in their ad? 3. They may be thinking, well, how the hell do you know in 6 years you only messaged 3? Because each one of them is vividly fresh in my mind. Because the three people I messaged, it turned into a knockdown, drag out fight, an argument. Every single time it happened. And the reason for this is because there's a disconnect between the buyer's perception and the seller's perception. The seller's perception is very high. Something has a lot of value, that's what they want to sell it for. But the buyer's perception is very low. And they just don't meet in the middle. Now, if you don't want to believe me about PM offer, fine. Do this. List the items you want to sell in trade chat with just PMO, no price. Then list the same exact items with the price. And let me know which you sell more of. We already know it's going to be the price, the listed price, by the way. But just in case you didn't, there you go. So always never put PMO. It's a waste of your time. It just is. The other thing is I see a lot of newer players make this mistakes where they'll say, want to sell prime sets, PM needs. Or they'll put, want to sell 100 ribbon mods, PM wants. Don't ever do this. List out the crap you want to sell. List it out one by one. Don't waste your time listing this kind of crap. Do you know how many people I have messaged to date 6 years later with this, that put this something like this? Never once. Never once have I messaged anybody with this kind of lazy bullcrap. Don't do it. Ever. Just don't. The other thing, links. If you're going to be in trade chat and you're going to be buying and selling ribbons quite a lot, get used, or even just regular mods, get used to using links. So how do you use links? Well, it's just like you see up here with Chroma Prime. Anything with blue letters like this, that's a link. Meaning that at any point anyone can click on it and it will take them to that link. In this case, it's Chroma Prime. You mostly see this with ribbon mods more than anything, but having those blue letters in a sea of just white characters really kind of helps break up and separate your ads from everyone else. So get used to using these links. And with ribbon mods, you just simply put this bar just like here, and then type in ribbon space mod and put the bar at the end. This will bring up, as soon as you hit enter, this will bring up all of your ribbon mods. And instead of trying to remember some crazy name on a ribbon mod, you can actually just select it. So to give you an example, which you're not going to be able to see this part, so I'm just typing in the bar, and then I'm typing in ribbon space mod with the bar again, and boom, it brings up all my ribbon mods. Now at this point, I don't have to remember some crazy friggin' name like Hima Crony Lexanac. I don't have to write that down or remember that or try and type that crap in there. All I have to do is type in the bar, then the bracket, and then ribbon with the space and mod and the end bracket, and I can just select the ribbon mod I want. And as you can see here, I have just added a link in my clan chat here. And so somebody can click on it and look at it and go, okay, it's not upgraded, it's been rolled one time, and it's a crap roll. 20 plat ribbon. Yep. But the point is that you can do that. The other thing is, don't be afraid to use these emojis. Use them. They are great at breaking up your ad and making your ad stand out from everyone else's. So feel free to use any of these. You can use any of them how you want to. So what else can I tell you? That's about all I can think of that we haven't talked about already. Well, let's take a look at Trade Chat here. Oh, that's one thing I do want to point out here. Is let's say there's somebody in Trade Chat that has something you are interested in buying, or there's somebody in Trade Chat that wants to buy something. Like this person wants to buy Saren Prime chassis for 50 plat. I personally think that's a little low. I think, if I recall correctly, the chassis is the gold drop, and Saren has been vaulted for a little bit, so the gold part should be the most expensive. And if you add the gold value with the silver value and then the little value of the bronze drops, yeah, I don't see that actually adding up. But let's say that you have a Saren Prime chassis, and let's say that you're willing to sell it for 50 plat. You would just hover over their name, and then you would click on it, go to talk, and this opens up a private message just to you and them. So you can message them and say, hey, I have a Saren Prime chassis. Can you do any better than 50 plat? Or whatever the message is. And then, they would go from there. The same thing works for ribbon mods as well. But yeah, that's how you do that. You just click on their name and, you just send them a message. Just that simple. Now, how I like to go about listing all of my stuff is I will list an item in Trade Chat for sale. And then what I will do is I will just wander around here looking for what people are wanting to buy. Looking to trade for Mirage Prime systems and Blueprint. Well, I'm needing the plats. Want to buy Zooch Prime receiver, Vinca Prime gauntlet ×2, Dakra Prime blade, Cronin Prime blade ×2, Haiku Prime pouch, Haiku Prime stars. The problem with the Haiku Prime is they are vaulted, and I'm not, whatever you do, don't break up your vaulted Prime sets to just sell bits and pieces and bits and bobs to somebody. That is a waste of your time. It's an absolute waste of your time. Do not do that. If you have a vaulted set, like the Haiku Prime, don't break it up to sell it to somebody. Just don't. Sell it as a set. It's vaulted. It's not like they can just go and get the relics, right? They can't. They can't go and get the relics. They can't go and farm the relics. They can't go and crack the relics open because they're no longer available. They're vaulted. So I like to keep all of my Prime sets together. Absolutely all of my Prime sets together. I don't like to break up any sets at all, vaulted or otherwise, because the bronze drops, for example, everybody and their dog has the bronze drops, which mean you get stuck with the bronze drops. Furthermore, people don't pay enough for the silver and gold drops. It's common for people to offer 5, 10 plat for a gold drop. Well, if you've ever had to grind for a gold drop from a relic, you know what a pain in the butt it is. How many relics you have to go through, how many reactants you have to go through, how many missions you have to run. And after all of that time, what do you get for all of that work? 10 plat. No thank you. And the downside here is the gold drops are worth 100 ducats each. Now, I don't need the 100 ducats, but maybe you do need the 100 ducats. And a gold drop for 5 or 10 plat to somebody, or 100 ducats. Yep, I'm scrapping it for 100 ducats. Thank you very much. Again, it's not worth my time. It's not a fair equation. After I spend all that time and relics and reactant to finally get the gold drop, and you're like, nah, here's 5 or 10 plat. Again, my response is no, thank you. I'll scrap it for 100 ducats before I sell it for 5 or 10 plat. Now, again, if the prices were different, if somebody was willing to pay what a fair price was for the gold drops, like 25, 30 plat, hey, I would break up the sets. But at this point, it's easier to sell a complete set. You can sell a complete set quicker. People are going to tend to pay you what you're asking, particularly in regards to a vaulted item. And they're not going to nickel and dime you. They're not going to be like, well, would you take 5 plat or 7 plat? No, thank you. So what I like, as I said, what I like to do is I like to list an ad, so for example, let me scroll down here real quick. All right, so I will list an ad, and so I'm just going to put something out here. Want to sell, let's go with Weeping Wounds. I have a Weeping Wounds mod. We're going to go 30 plat. And then I'm also going to sell a Imperator Vandal. I've got a pretty good stash of these. And I'm going to ask 50 plat or best offer. There we go. So while my ad, there's my ad right there. Peace and grease. Want to sell Weeping Wounds, unranked, 30 plat. That is the link I put down there. And then the Imperator Vandal for 50, set for 50 plat. So somebody can click on the Imperator Vandal. Like if they didn't know what the Imperator Vandal was. What's the Imperator Vandal? I don't know what that is. They can click on it and go, oh, it's an arc gun. Just that simple. So having the link to it works great. But right now, if you notice at the bottom right corner here, I now have a timer. That means I can't post any more ads in Trade Chat until that timer is up. So what do? You now scroll through everyone else's ads that are wanting to buy. This person's wanting to buy a Kara, which is a Requiem mod. This person wants to buy a Kuba Brahma ribbon. This wants to trade Orthos Prime for Tigris Prime. This person wants to trade for Ivara Prime Neuroptics. And I just sit here and I just scroll through here looking at what everybody has. Want to buy Ash Prime Systems 20 plat? Yeah. Not likely. Not bloody likely. The Ash Prime Systems is a gold drop. And Ash Prime is vaulted. So am I going to sell the systems and break up one of my sets for 20 plat? No way in hell. It took me forever to farm that. And if you think I'm going to give it away for 20 plat, think again. Again, these are vaulted. This person wants to sell Equinox Prime for 60. And here you go. Want to buy a G-Roll Exceltra ribbon. Yeah. Want to buy Wukong Systems. Want to sell Nikana Prime 60 plat. Want to buy Kuba Nucor Heat. And that's the other thing. If you ever see somebody saying they want to buy a ribbon mod for a specific weapon, and they say want to buy trash ribbon, in case you're wondering what that means, it basically means they want it cheap. That's all it means. All they're saying is, I want a ribbon mod for this weapon that I really, really like and that a lot of other people really, really like, but I want a trash ribbon, which means I want it really, really cheap. That's basically what it means. They want the cheapest mod they can possibly get. Bottom line. All right, want to buy Kuba Nucor. This is going to be a Kuba Lich. So they want a Kuba Nucor with 55% heat. Here's another ad. This person listed all of these primes, not a price anywhere to be had. And there's a couple ribbons in here as well. But they listed these primes and these ribbons, not a price to be seen. Not a single price anywhere. PMO. Even if this person had something that I desperately wanted, I still would not message them. Want to buy Sicarus Prime receiver? Again, the Sicarus Prime is vaulted. I'm not breaking up a vaulted Prime set to sell to somebody. This guy wants to trade for Locke. I got Foss and Zata, which these are all Requiem mods for Liches. Want to buy Neo A3. So let's find out what Neo A3 is and what you can do with links, and this is really handy. Instead of me going all the way over to my Relic terminal, I can actually just type in Neo A3 Relic, put the brackets at the front and rear, making sure to put Neo space A3 space and the word Relic with the bracket at the end. And this is going to provide me with a link that I can just now click on. I don't have to go anywhere. I don't have to look at anything. Okay, so this person wants A3, Lex Prime Barrel, Mesa Prime Chassis, Zooch Prime Grip, Atlas Prime Systems, Equinox Prime Neuroptics, Actucara Prime Barrel. Yeah, there's really nothing on here of really significant value. There's really nothing on here that's really vaulted. So why this person's wanting to buy the A3s is kind of curious. But anyway, I'm going to probably go ahead and wrap this video up here. I think you get the general idea. Hopefully this helps you out. Hopefully it gets you using Trade Chat. Make that plat. Make it. I mean, you have just as much right to Trade Chat as anybody else. Nobody can tell you otherwise. Period. The end. So get out there, get into Trade Chat, and make your plat. Because you're the only one that can. right? You're the only one that can do that. And if you feel like I missed something, if you have a question about something, put it down in the comment section. I will be more than happy to answer it. I try to respond to every comment on every video. I kind of take pride in that. I take pride in the fact that I try to comment on every single comment that someone puts on my videos. All right, no matter how minor and no matter how negative, I always try to respond. So if you have a question, ask it. And if I can't answer it, then I'm sure some of my subs or viewers will as well. Feel free. There's no such thing as a stupid question. There really isn't. All right, the only stupid question is the one you didn't ask. Period, the end. So anyway, I hope this helps you out. And until next time, peace and grace.